All right, guys, what's going on? I am here today with Megan Betker from Sentry West. She is joining us from her LA office over there on the Zoom call.
My virtual LA office.
We're excited to have her on today. For those of you that don't know, she is a sponsor of our monthly meetups. She is a real estate investor herself, has done some different types of investments, everything from some buy and holds all the way up to doing some, I just heard, some possible builds and doing some other kind of stuff. She's done some flips as well. So she's been heavily involved in our community, always there to support. And I thought it'd be really cool to bring her on and just talk a little bit about some of the insurance stuff that's going on right now and how you can actually look at the different options that are out there, especially with what's going on. And then talk a little bit further in the interview around what we can talk about with your expenses right now. Obviously, it's a tough time with people going through some layoffs and different expenses going on. So just what people can look at there. So Megan, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself to start with, some of your background in your business as well as in your real estate background.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So for those of you who haven't seen me at the meetup groups, I have been involved in, I guess, like the real estate side of investing for the past 5 years. And I guess that's how Randy and I and Steve all kind of got connected at the beginning. I had done some Keyspire training, and we all kind of got together through connections there, and that really catapulted me into wanting to invest more in real estate. So I've done, as Randy mentioned, I have some buy and hold properties. I've done flips, as well as now kind of trying to break into the developing side of things, so building on some lots. So we'll see how that plays out in the next year, but at least the experience will be there once I've done it. Professionally, I am an independent investment advisor and insurance advisor. Independent meaning essentially I'm like a mortgage broker. I'm able to look for what the best options are for my clients in terms of investment side of things as well as insurance, and looking at the big scale or the big picture when it comes to budgeting and all of that. I don't have an institution telling me how I need to spend my time. So it works really well for me. I don't do well having people tell me what to do. So that's, I guess, a little bit about me. Yeah.
Yeah, one of our favorite things about you is that not only are you an investment advisor, but you look at the whole picture. You look at people that you don't just look at, hey, how can we put you into the easiest TFSA and just get some of those EFTs going, stuff like that. But you really look at how you can actually take their whole portfolio into consideration. Where can they invest in some real estates and some other different investments? And so that's why we've always loved having you a part of our group, is because you're not just one track minded. You're actually looking at their whole portfolio as one. And because you have the experience of investing in so many different areas yourself, you're able to provide some of that information. So we love that about you. One of the things that we wanted to chat about today was just a little bit of the difference between mortgage insurance versus life insurance. Obviously, right now, there's a lot of talk about life insurance going on out there. But a lot of people don't know the differences between when you go to the bank and they say, hey, we're going to offer you some mortgage insurance, versus the different insurances that you can get through life insurance or through an independent broker like yourself. Thought maybe you could just touch on the differences between the two and some of the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of confusion when people hear mortgage insurance, like the mortgage protector from a lender versus life insurance, because the terms are used so interchangeably. Like people think that home insurance, which can be your content, gets confused with the mortgage insurance, life insurance, then all these different terms, it throws people for a loop. So to break down, I guess, what the product is that most mortgage lenders are able to offer when you go to sign your mortgage documents. They are required to ask if you want to sign up for the mortgage protector. So there's a few different points with that coverage. I think the most important one being the fact that there is about 5 to 6 questions that is asked, and they're very convoluted questions that is asked to be able to get that coverage. It is not underwritten. They don't look through your medical history. They take your answers off of those 6 questions, and you start paying for the coverage. the end to that is if you go to make a claim, that is when they start looking at your medical file. So it's called something called post-claim underwriting. So you go to make that claim, they look through your medical history, they go back and assess whether you were actually ever eligible for that coverage. So you could have been paying into it for a year, 5 years, 20 years. It doesn't really matter. There has been so much research, I guess, done into that type of insurance. Like CBC Marketplace did an expose on, I guess, the intricacies of that coverage, and that it is a great moneymaker for the lenders, the institutions, but it rarely works out to be the benefit of the client. So that's one of the biggest differences between that coverage that you're going to get for the mortgage through a lender versus if you were to get personal life insurance to cover the amount of the mortgage. So it is life insurance because essentially that's what it is. It's just the idea behind it is to cover that mortgage amount. So with regular life insurance, they have access to your full medical history and file. As soon as you submit the application, you are giving them permission to access that information. So anything that they're not going to be willing to cover you for, you're going to know before you even implement that policy. And whether or not you are okay with that, you'll know at least in advance. You know if that, when you go to provide a death certificate, if they're paying out or not, which is what you want. You don't want to be trying to fight with an insurance company when you're already grieving and dealing with a really horrible situation, trying to fight to get something that you thought you were paying for however long.
Which is super.
Sorry.
I was just going to say that's super important to kind of distinguish the two. Like one is like, hey, we'll review your records after everything's done and you're going through the whole death scenario and everything that's going on, and we'll see what it looks like, versus where you're getting it done with someone like yourself. You get it done pre-hand, you know exactly what you're getting into and exactly what's covered and exactly where you're going with it. And so it kind of makes it a little bit less scary knowing exactly what you're covered for versus just taking something that the bank's offering you with the chance on the back end of having to find out exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important difference between the two products. There are a number of other benefits to doing the life insurance versus the mortgage. A couple being mortgage insurance. If you ever switch lenders, then you are technically having to like reapply at that new age. A lot of mortgage terms are 5 years, so when you go to get your next renewal, you're 5 years older. Insurance goes up with age. So your premiums can be constantly increasing. Another thing is that as you pay down your mortgage, so there's kind of like a little scale here, you're paying the same premium every month for that life or disability or critical illness insurance that you got through the lender. You're paying the same amount, but you're getting less coverage. When you buy life insurance, you are deciding on a specific amount and you're paying that corresponding premium. So if there's less that needs to be paid on to the mortgage, then you just have the difference as a surplus, or we look at doing like a laddered policy so that those premiums are kind of going down as your mortgage amount is going down.
That's super interesting too. I didn't even think that much about that, of like your mortgage coverage policies cover you for the mortgage that's remaining, still paying that amount. But with the life insurances, you actually can have that benefit. You're actually getting that on the back end. So that's incredible. And so one of the things that we've been talking about, Megan, is COVID-19 and how that can affect people right now with their insurances. And it's such a hot topic. Do you have just a quick summary for people that have insurances or policies that are a little bit worried, or if anything's going on with COVID-19?
Yeah, there's been some, I guess, rumors I've seen on social media that that the insurance companies aren't going to cover if there was a death due to the COVID-19. I've checked in with a number of providers, and from everything that I see, that those are rumors. There's not a pandemic clause in any contract that I've seen here. There's not an act of God clause per se, and this isn't considered an act of God in terms of the insurance company. So I've been assured that by a number of the providers that I use, that clients don't need to have that concern if something happened. Worst case, that they are covered if they already have that coverage in place. And I think if people really do have those concerns, then what I would advise is they can reach out, and I can check with the provider that they have and just confirm, just to give them a little bit of peace of mind in this crazy time. But it also is good for people that haven't dealt with getting their coverage yet. Um, and if they do have any of those concerns, we are still able to get them coverage now. The insurance companies have adapted a lot more in the past week and a half than I have ever seen. They're pretty archaic usually when it comes to their policies, but now they've had to adapt. So we're able to do most applications remotely. The medicals have been dropped, so there's doing like telephone interviews as opposed to people having to go meet with a health professional to do questions and fluid testing. So there can be some positives seen within this, and if people haven't looked into those coverages, they're available still. It's still something we can definitely be looking at if it's a concern of people's right now.
That's awesome. And then quickly, just before you have to jump back and get into mom life, obviously people right now are looking at their finances and trying to figure out how they can budget the best. And with all the layoffs and everything that's going on, what do you recommend for people right now that are sitting at home kind of looking at these finances going, oh my God, I didn't realize I was paying, all these different Netflixes and all these Spotify's and all the different accounts and everything like that, and starting to look at it where they can cut costs and things. What do you recommend for people right now as a financial advisor, just looking at their overall portfolios?
I think that taking the time, we all have time now, so that can't even be the excuse for people that don't usually want, well, no one wants to deal with budgeting, but people that don't deal with it and push it aside. We have the time now, and I think now more than ever it's really important to know where every penny is going. And I think the number one piece of advice I can do is try to minimize the expenses that you can. Like we personally at my house, we don't have cable, but that might be one thing you could eliminate and just keep Netflix. So that could maybe save you $100 a month. So there are some small changes that we can be making just to try and conserve what resources we do have. And I think that's really important. When it comes to like mortgages, I know a lot of deferrals are being offered. If you can maybe make your payments right now, you may still want to inquire about the ability to defer, especially if you don't have any kind of emergency contingency savings, because you may be able to, instead of paying that mortgage payment this month, put that money into that emergency savings and do the deferral, just so that you have some kind of resources, because we don't know how long this is going to last us. So if we don't have those contingencies already built, then maybe that can help people have a little bit of one to try to see us through this pandemic thing we're not at all prepared for or used
Totally.
to.
One of the things that people might not know about you is that you actually work with quite a few investors on actually just when times are not in the craziness, looking at all the different cash flows that come in from all their different investments. Quite a few people have different investments in different areas and different private lending things. You actually work with them and support them on kind of doing a portfolio overview. I don't know if you just want to touch on that quickly before I let you go, of just what you actually do sometimes working with investors on helping them see that on this topic of budgeting and just seeing what their portfolios look
Well, I
like.
think that kind of comes into play, right? Like when we're doing that, we are looking at the overall budget. So I think maybe people can do it, start doing that process on their own. If they still need a hand to hold them and kind of guide them through that, I'm happy to do so. But like even with real estate investors, as I was mentioning earlier to you before we hopped on this call, is that we don't even necessarily know if our tenants are going to be able to make those rent payments. And that's a big concern. So I think looking at the overall budget, and if there is any wiggle room, if there's not, we really need to be having those discussions with our tenants and seeing what we can possibly do to both support the tenants and the tenants help support us, right? Because we're going to be our only salvation right now is people helping one another out. So I think making sure you're taking a peek at all of those things before the first of the month comes around and you don't get that rent payment, and then you're trying to scramble to figure out how you can cover your basis. Let's take a look at it now instead of May 1st, since we've already passed April 1st.
Totally, totally. Well, I know you got to get back to the little one, and I appreciate you taking the time out to do this. How can people reach out to you? What's the best way that they can get in touch with you? And also, what areas are you servicing location-wise right now?
Depends on what we're looking at. Because everything is remote right now, like I'm insurance licensed in the province of BC, so I
Perfect.
can have pretty wide borders there. But yeah, everything's remote right now, so we kind of don't have necessarily those same boundary restrictions that we could. So I guess I can assist a lot of people, even if it's just having conversation and giving them education in terms of what's going to be coming up as available in terms of like federal or provincial benefits. I think it's really important that people are staying on top of those and trying to apply for as many as they can that are applicable.
Awesome.
And best way to reach out to me would be the Real Investors community page. Is you can message me on there, private message me, or my email is Megan Betker, first and last name. You can post it after this
Yep.
at sentrywest.ca. People can shoot me an email and we can set up a time to have a chat.
Awesome. Yeah, anyone that I recommend everyone have a chat with you just around just the options that are out there for insurances, as well as just the budgeting side of things. And obviously when times are a little bit better, the investment side of things as well. Having a conversation with you is always a pleasure. And like I said, it's just incredible having someone who can see the real estate side of it and bring it into the insurance and the investment side as well. It's absolutely amazing. So appreciate it as always, Megan. And we look forward to spending the year with you, having you here to support the entire community and just answer all of our questions.
Well, I'm always here. So thank you for taking the time to have a chat today, and we will talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan.
Okay, thanks.